Sun rose over the plains like a blade drawn slow across velvet, spilling light so bright it turned the world to bleached gold. The grasses trembled under its weight, whispering their secrets to each other, small voices lost in the vastness. Somewhere a lark sang, sweet and untroubled, not knowing how close death perched in this land. At the edge of a clearing stood an oak, old enough its limbs twisted like arthritic hands begging the sky for mercy. From one gnarled branch a girl dangled, her calico dress torn, feet bare, skin ghost pale against the dark bark. A rough rope bit into her neck, not tight enough to snap it clean, just cruel enough to choke the life slow. Beneath her swung a cracked board, letters scrawled in dripping tar, Indian land. Flies buzzed around her wrists where dried blood crusted over bruises. Now and then her chest shuddered with a breath that sounded like wind scraping through hollow bone. Nearby, black shapes circled, crows, patient and greedy. A horse's snort broke the stillness. From between sunburnt rocks emerged a lone rider, a Comanche man, not yet old, but long past the blush of youth. 30 winters behind his eyes carved out quiet trenches of grief. His hair was bound in a low knot, dark as raven's wings, and he wore a simple shirt of faded trade cloth, knife strapped at his hip. His horse moved at a slow, cautious pace, as if it too felt the ghost hanging from the tree. He pulled up short, dark eyes narrowing. For a breathless stretch of heartbeats, he just sat there, wind stirring dust around his boots. Then he swung down, boots sinking into warm soil. He moved with a quiet grace, neither rushed nor hesitant, but as if each step had already been written by older hands than his. When he stood beneath the girl, he saw the raw scrapes on her neck, the tears dried stiff on her cheeks. Her lashes fluttered, a moth trapped under thin skin, and a weak rasp scraped from her throat. Still alive. The knowledge settled over him like a stone in deep water. He did not pray. He did not curse. Only let out a long breath, the kind that empties more than lungs. His hands rose to the rope. A small hunting knife appeared, blade flashing once in sun, then biting through hemp. She fell like a sack of wheat into his arms. Her head lolled against his shoulder. Her scent hit him, salt, dust, something sweet like crushed wildflowers ground into earth. Gently he eased her down, cradling her skull so it wouldn't smack rock. Her breaths were shallow, ribs quivering. She tried to speak, lips moving around a wordless plea. He laid a rough hand against her cheek, not sure if it was comfort for her or proof to himself she was real. Water. He needed water. He scooped her up again, surprised by how little she weighed. Like carrying the memory of a person rather than flesh and bone. His horse followed as he moved downhill toward a ribbon of creek hidden by willows. Each step felt loud in this hush, the crunch of grass, the wheeze of leather. At the water's edge, he set her down on a patch of moss, cupped cool water in his palm, trickled it past her cracked lips. She shivered, coughed, then drank greedy little gulps. Her eyes flickered open, pale blue, cloudy with pain and confusion. For an instant they locked on his, and in them he glimpsed terror, so deep it made his stomach twist. He shook his head slowly, raised his empty hands. Soft words fell from his mouth, not her language, but heavy with promise. Live, little one. No more ropes. She tried to lift her hand to his face, then dropped it, too weak. A whimper escaped her, animal small. He took that hand, rough thumb brushing over knuckles. Her skin was hot, feverish. Infection from the rope burns or some sickness already lurking in her blood. He would watch through the night, he decided. If death wanted her, it would have to pass through him first. As evening slid over the plains like spilled ink, he built a small fire under the trees, careful to hide the smoke. His horse grazed nearby, tail swishing. The girl lay on a woven blanket he unrolled for her, breath still rattling, but stronger now. Moonlight found her hair and turned it to silver threads. A coyote yipped in the distance. The girl stirred, eyes cracking open. She looked around, panic rising like floodwater, until he laid a hand on her shoulder. Her gaze snapped to him. He did not smile, just gave a slow nod that meant safe. Her shoulders loosened, though her eyes stayed watchful. Later, she fell into a fitful sleep. He sat cross-legged beside her, sharpening his knife out of old habit. The blade caught firelight, glinted with quiet menace. Not for her. For whatever men might come next to finish the ugly work they'd begun. His thoughts drifted as he worked the whetstone to his mother's stories of spirits that roamed these lands, spirits who watched men's cruelties and wept. Maybe they wept for this girl. Maybe they wept for him, too, a man whose heart had gone dry after burying too many kin. Yet now here was this fragile scrap of life, dropped into his hands by fate or blind chance, breathing shallow breaths that somehow filled up all the hollow places inside him. A twig snapped. His head jerked up, knife ready, but was only a rabbit skittering through underbrush. Still, his pulse beat hard. He scanned the tree line, nose flaring for the scent of smoke, ears straining for distant voices. Nothing, just the endless sigh of the land. When he turned back, he found the girl watching him. Awake again, eyes gleaming wet in the firelight. Her lips moved, struggling to shape something. Not his language, but maybe words didn't matter. He reached out, brushed a lock of hair from her brow. Her eyes fluttered closed, her breath deepening into real sleep. Under that sheltering cottonwood, with the moon overhead and the creek muttering soft prayers to stone, a fragile peace settled between them. Neither truly trusted the other yet. Neither knew the shape tomorrow would take. But for this one trembling night, they were not alone, and that was enough to keep the ghosts at bay. Morning came shy, creeping over the rim of the world on soft fox paws. Mist clung to the creek like a veil, catching the light and fracturing it into 1,000 trembling jewels. Birds began their small songs, stitching the silence together with fragile threads of hope. He rose from where he'd kept watch all night, muscles stiff, knife still in hand. His eyes went first to her. She lay curled on the blanket, hair tangled, cheeks flushed with fever. For a moment he feared death had slipped in quiet and taken her while he blinked. But then her chest lifted, fell. Alive. A delicate relief bloomed in his chest, sharp enough to ache. She woke with a little cry, clutching at her throat. He knelt by her side, murmured soft nonsense until her panic ebbed. Her eyes roved over the trees, the stones, then found him. Wide and fearful still. He pointed to his chest, tapped it twice. Then slowly spread his hands, empty palms up. No harm. She watched, breath snagging on her ribs, but something in her gaze eased. Just a flicker, the trembling leaf of trust trying to unfurl. He helped her sit, braced her slender back with a steady hand. When she winced at the pressure on her neck, he carefully shifted his grip. Her fingers found his wrist, clinging. Not in trust yet, but in the raw instinct of drowning souls grabbing anything that floats. He guided her to sip more water, tore a strip from his own shirt to bathe the angry rope burns. Her skin was hot under his touch, breaths coming quick, shallow. Infection burrowed deep. He needed herbs. Willow bark for fever, sage for cleansing. He scanned the trees, mind already mapping where such things might grow. Her voice cracked the air then, startling as gunfire. A weak whisper, almost broken in half by pain. He didn't understand the words, but heard the plea in them, raw, bleeding. She pointed back the way he'd come, toward the twisted oak. Her eyes filled, mouth twisting, as if tasting ash. He shook his head. No going back to that place. Her hand fell, trembling, and she hunched over, shoulders quaking. A sound slipped out of her that cut him deep, the keening of someone who has lost more than life can ever repay. He could only crouch beside her, offering the silent comfort of presence. His own tongue was stone in his mouth. What words could soothe a soul freshly torn? So he let her grief wash over them both, a bitter baptism. As the sun climbed, he packed his small camp, helped her to her feet. She sagged against him, head lolling on his shoulder. Each step was a test, but she did not collapse. Her breath rasped, alive still. That would have to be enough. They moved through the whispering grasses, the world vast and watchful. Now and then he glimpsed the shimmer of white hair trailing over his arm, felt the hot press of her cheek against him. Strange how quickly her fragile weight became something he could no longer imagine not carrying. Hours passed before they found what he sought. By a small rise of stone, sun-warmed and gentle, grew the sharp green of willow saplings. He settled her against the rock, then knelt to strip bark, cutting thin curls that he bundled in a scrap of cloth. She watched him with eyes that were glazed but intent, lips parted as though trying to breathe in more than air, maybe breathing in him, too, trying to understand this man who hadn't left her to swing. When he sat beside her again, he crushed the bark with a stone, mixed it with water, coaxed it between her lips. She made a face at the bitter taste, then swallowed. He stroked her hair back, murmured low syllables that meant nothing and everything. Later, clouds rolled over the sun, dimming the world. Her head lolled against his shoulder, breaths easier now. He let his eyes drift over the horizon, wary. Always wary. Men who'd done such cruelty to a girl would not let her vanish without hunt or howl. Any shadow on the hills could hide rifles. Any rustle might be boots. A sudden motion made him tense, but was only her hand slipping into his. Small, fever-slick, clutching like a child afraid of thunder. He looked down and found her watching him, something in her gaze softer now, a ghost of gratitude. Or perhaps desperation masquerading as trust. He squeezed her hand gently. Felt the answering pressure, frail but real. Strange how that simple grasp sank hooks into him, deeper than any blade. A rustle. This time not animal. His head snapped up. There, between distant cottonwoods, moved dark shapes. Men on horseback. 4, maybe 5. Too far to see faces, but he could taste the iron on the wind. Danger coming. Slow and deliberate. Hunting men never rushed. He eased her hand away, rose, knife sliding into his grip. His mind raced, mapping escape. The creek. The rocks beyond. If he could get her there, circle back. But she could barely stand. Leaving her was not even breath to him. He would not. She tugged at his trouser leg. When he looked down, her eyes were wide, pupils swallowing blue. She knew. Even without words, the fear leaped between them. Her lips moved again, whispering something that might have been run, or hide, or simply live. Instead he crouched, pressed his forehead to hers. Let his breath mingle with hers, hot and unsteady. A promise passed there, unspoken but clear as thunder. Then he rose, pulled her up, slung her arm over his shoulder. Together they staggered toward the line of rocks. Behind them came the low echo of voices, laughter drifting cruel and bright across the fields. They reached the stones, crouched in the shadows. Her breath came fast, eyes squeezed shut. His hand found hers again. A squeeze. Her fingers returned it, fragile yet fierce. Above them, the sky darkened, bruised with coming storm. Lightning flashed far off, a silent herald. The men's voices grew clearer, closer. Each word was a blade against the hush. He tightened his grip on her hand, on his knife. Whatever blood was about to be spilled on this soil, it would not be hers alone. The storm cracked open in the distance. Rain began to whisper down, cold and clean. In that breathless pause before thunder answered, he turned to her, found her eyes open wide, reflecting him like mirrors. In them he saw no helpless victim, only raw will, broken perhaps but unbowed. And in that silent exchange, under the first sighs of rain, they made a pact older than any law. They would not surrender, not to men nor monsters. Together they would stand, come whatever darkness the storm might bring.